at the fringe where mortals and cultivators unknowingly brushed past one another, where worldly ambition intertwined with the pursuit of immortality. Tai Chang Prefecture stood as a land of quiet contradictions. Here wealth rivaled kingdoms, faith rivaled power, and beneath the surface of mundane prosperity, unseen forces stirred among mountains veiled in mist. It was in such a place where Confucian doctrine, Taoist mysticism, and Buddhist relics coexisted in uneasy balance that Han Li once again stepped into the mortal world, concealing his true self as destiny slowly drew its net tighter. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Perhaps Han Li raised no objections to the claimed might of the altered seven-flame fan. Regardless of shape or form, treasures aligned with the fire attribute were almost invariably honed for destruction. Among all elemental spiritual powers, fire reigned supreme in sheer overwhelming force. After Monarch Soul Divergence finished speaking, Han Li did not respond. With a casual flick of his sleeve, he sent the two pearls drifting into the air, then struck each of them with a spell seal. Golden and milky white radiance bloomed simultaneously, the pearls hovering motionless as if frozen within the glow. Han Li blinked once, then slapped his storage pouch. In an instant, an assortment of jade bottles and small boxes appeared before him. At the same time, a diminutive cauldron rose into the air, suspended steadily at his side. His hands formed an incantation seal. With a sharp point of his finger, the cauldron shuddered violently, its lid shooting upward before circling once and coming to rest in mid-air. Almost simultaneously, one of the jade boxes opened on its own. A mound of verdant powder spilled into view, rich and luminous. Han Li exhaled a breath of azure light toward it. With a soft flicker, nearly half the powder was swept into the air, spiraling briefly before pouring neatly into the cauldron below. He gave a low shout. A slender thread of azure flame burst forth from his mouth. Though small and seemingly fragile, the moment it touched the cauldron, roaring fire erupted. The bottom half of the vessel was instantly engulfed in surging flames. Yet, as the flame left his lips, Han Li's complexion visibly paled, his aura weakening. A bitter smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. He had not expected that forcibly drawing out a strand of nascent flame while his cultivation remained sealed would be so taxing. Of course, this difficulty was compounded by the severe injuries he had suffered on the Mulan Plains wounds from an ambush by a late nascent soul cultivator that had yet to fully heal. Suppressing the discomfort, Han Li gestured toward a slender jade bottle. It drifted forward obediently. Its lid opened and a stream of emerald liquid poured into the cauldron, instantly merging with the green powder inside. Han Li murmured another incantation and struck the azure flames with a spell seal. The fire surged, expanding, until it completely wrapped around the cauldron. Moments later, a faint medicinal fragrance wafted through the air. Han Li's brows twitched. With a wave of his hand, another jade box rose halfway into the air. From within it flew a stalk of fire-red spirit grass, which dropped directly into the cauldron. Time passed slowly. At precise intervals, Han Li added more ingredients, his movements calm and exacting his control flawless. One full day later, the refinement was complete. Han Li swept his sleeve, extinguishing the nascent flame. The cauldron drifted gently into his palm. Lowering his head, he peered inside. Within lay a dense liquid, several inches deep, translucent emerald green, and exuding a powerful fragrance. After studying it for a moment and confirming it matched the description recorded on the jade slip, Han Li cautiously asked, "Is this spirit liquid acceptable?" "That is indeed it," Monarch Soul Divergence replied slowly. "I did not expect your pill refinement techniques to reach such depth. Even at my peak, I may not have surpassed this. I had assumed you would fail at least twice before succeeding. Immerse the heavenly corpse pearl in the liquid for 7 days. The corpse poison will be fully extracted. After that, the pearl may be consumed at will." Han Li smiled faintly. He pointed toward the golden pearl floating in the air. In the blink of an eye, it shot into the cauldron, followed immediately by the lid, which sealed itself shut with a dull thud. He placed the cauldron in the corner of the room and paid it no further attention. Refining the other pearl required far less effort. Han Li muttered an incantation and flipped his hand. A small sphere of purple flames emerged. With a flick of his wrist, he hurled it onto the snow crystal pearl. The pearl erupted in brilliant white and violet light as the purple apex flames fused with it. A trace of delight flashed across Han Li's face. He exhaled a mist of azure light completely enveloping the crystal. The pearl rapidly shrank until it was no larger than a medicinal pill, then slipped straight down Han Li's throat. He closed his eyes, expression solemn hands forming an incantation as his consciousness plunged inward. Within his dantian, the snow crystal pearl rested quietly. Around it, purple flames revolved endlessly, forming a lotus flower roughly an inch in size. Beneath the pearl, a nascent soul sat in meditation hands, locked in a spell seal. The contrast between the serene nascent soul and the blazing violet lotus lent the scene an air of profound mystery. Only then did Han Li finally relax. With his current foundation establishment cultivation, directly refining the pearl was impossible. Fortunately, the purple apex flames were domineering enough to suppress it. By housing the pearl within his body, he could allow partial refinement to proceed. Once his cultivation recovered, the pearl would already be tamed to some extent, and in an emergency, he could forcibly wield it using the flames. With both pearls settled, Han Li did not immediately turn to other matters. Instead, he sat cross-legged for half a day, restoring a portion of his magic power. Only then did he retrieve a spirit beast pouch from his waist and toss it into the air. A cloud of white mist burst forth, revealing a golden bubble suspended mid-air. Inside the half-complete Vajra barrier, the weeping soul beast lay curled up, sleeping soundly. Seeing this, Han Li did not know whether to laugh or cry. The weeping soul beast truly loved its sleep. More often than not, whenever he summoned it, it was already fast asleep. He let out a helpless chuckle and flicked his finger, sending a thin streak of azure light into the golden bubble. The barrier trembled and bounced gently, rousing the creature within. Realizing it was no longer inside the pouch, the weeping soul beast cried out excitedly. It shot from the Vajra barrier in a streak of golden light, circled once in the air, then nimbly landed on Han Li's shoulder, rubbing its soft fur against his neck. Years spent together had made it deeply attached to him. Han Li smiled, gently patting the monkey's head before turning his gaze back to the Vajra barrier. With a wave of his sleeve, he sent forth a gust of azure light engulfing the treasure. Brilliant light swirled repeatedly around it, yet the golden bubble showed no reaction whatsoever. Han Li frowned slightly. He quickly formed incantation seals, murmuring under his breath. Spell seals shot forth one after another, striking the Vajra barrier. Ripples appeared across its surface, but nothing more. His expression darkened. With his current knowledge, these were the only two treasure possession methods he knew. Exhaling slowly, he switched tactics, forming different hand seals as his voice rose and fell. Multicolored spell seals streaked out in succession, flashing as they struck the barrier. Still, there was no response. Senior Soul Divergence, Han Li finally asked, "What is going on? Even though my cultivation is only at the foundation establishment stage, I should still be able to claim ownership of this treasure." Monarch Soul Divergence replied calmly. The Vajra barrier is a defensive treasure refined using corpse flames and Buddhist crystal relics. Such relics are exceedingly rare, and corpse flames naturally conflict with them. Ordinary possession techniques are ineffective. Try using the incantations I taught you specifically for Vajra relics. Very well. Han Li nodded without hesitation. Half a day later, using the newly learned seals, he finally forced the Vajra barrier to shrink and fall into his palm. Relief flickered across his face. Yet completing the final refinement would be far more troublesome. Even his nascent flames were incapable of tempering the barrier, and Monarch Soul Divergence had no solution either. According to his speculation, the final refinement step required myriad-year corpse flames. When Han Li heard this, he rolled his eyes and snorted darkly. Myriad-year corpse flames. Are you suggesting I march into the snow-mound mountains and hand myself over to King Glorious Blaze? Monarch Soul Divergence snorted in response, then fell silent. Just as Han Li was feeling utterly helpless, despite having obtained the Vajra barrier, the weeping soul beast on his shoulder suddenly spat out a wisp of grey-white flame out of sheer boredom. The flame struck the Vajra barrier suspended in the air. The once motionless barrier let out a series of low groans. Wrapped in the grey flames, its form began to fluctuate violently. Han Li's eyes widened in shock. Myriad-year corpse flame. Monarch Soul Divergence muttered stunned. At the boundary between the central and northern territories of the Jin Empire lay a region that, despite ranking among the smallest of the Empire's 36 regions in land area, stood firmly within the top 5 in terms of wealth. Its fertile fields stretched endlessly, its rivers crisscrossed the land like veins of silver, together nurturing immense prosperity. Vast tracts of spirit mountains also dotted the region, their peaks perpetually shrouded in mist. Mortal residents who lived among these mountains would often glimpse immortals clad in Taoist robes or Buddhist cassocks soaring into the distant heavens, vanishing beyond the clouds. Needless to say, Taoism and Buddhism flourished here. Temples and monasteries were scattered throughout the land in abundance, and regardless of status or wealth, all mortals paid deep reverence to one of these two great schools. Yet beyond Taoism and Buddhism, another influence quietly permeated the cities and towns of the region: Confucianism. There were a total of 39 Confucian schools spread throughout the area. Among them, the largest academies boasted masters of profound learning, their ranks filled with scholars who often served as officials within the Jin Empire. At the other extreme were the smallest schools, staffed only by ordinary instructors capable of imparting little more than the most basic principles of Confucian doctrine. Still, should any disciple display exceptional talent, they would be recommended upward to a higher academy, granting even impoverished students a rare chance at advancement. After all, graduates of high-grade Confucian academies were warmly welcomed into the upper echelons of the Jin Empire. As for scholars who emerged from the most prestigious institutions, they were avidly recruited by nobles of every rank. The capital of Tai Chang Prefecture, Tai Chang City, was home to one such renowned Confucian academy. Though the city did not rank among the empire's foremost capitals, it was nonetheless one of Nan Province's greatest centers of commerce, a gathering place for wealth and power. 4 noble families held official titles within the city, and countless people of every trade and profession resided there. On the western side of Tai Chang City lived the Gan clan, a family of exceptionally wealthy merchants. They owned more than 20 restaurants across the cities of the prefecture. In smaller towns, they were absolute lords of wealth. Even in Tai Chang City, they still stood among the elite. Among those elites, the Gan clan possessed a particularly expansive estate within the wealthy district and employed over 40 servants. One blazing noon, a youth dressed in Confucian robes slowly walked down a street within the city. He appeared to be in his early 20s, a bulky bundle strapped to his back, thickly wrapped in grey cloth and caked with dust from long travel. As he walked, his gaze wandered constantly. Before long, his eyes settled upon a pair of glossy black gates. When he read the gilded characters, Gan Estate, a faint smile unconsciously surfaced on his lips. Approaching the gate, he studied it briefly before raising his hand and pounding firmly upon the iron door. Thud, thud. Hurried footsteps sounded from within. The gate cracked open, revealing a middle-aged man dressed in servant's robes. His expression was initially respectful. However, upon seeing the youth, the servant froze. The courtesy on his face quickly faded as he straightened his posture and asked in a guarded tone, "May I ask whom the esteemed guest is seeking?" His eyes swept over the youth, clearly trying to discern his background. The youth cupped his hands in a polite salute and smiled. "Is this the residence of Uncle Ganchi?" After a closer look at the quality of the youth's clothing, the servant's earlier hint of disdain vanished. At the sound of Ganchi's name, alarm flickered across his face. He hastily replied, "Uncle Ganqi. Ganqi is my master's esteemed name." "Then young sir must be—" "I am Han Li," the youth replied with a calm smile. "Uncle Ganqi is a distant relative of mine. I have come to pay him a visit." It had been a full year since Han Li entered secluded cultivation. During that time, with the aid of the heavenly corpse pearl and the Vajra relic, he had refined the first layer of the bright jade arts. The surging, baleful qi within him had largely settled, which brought him considerable relief. Still, it remained a hidden danger that demanded resolution. Thus, he had hurried to the Gan clan to proceed with the next step of his plan to completely eradicate it. After a moment of hesitation, the servant replied, "So it is young Sir Han. Unfortunately, the master left earlier this morning to meet with his colleagues. At present, the eldest young master is overseeing the estate. Shall I report your arrival to him?" "Please do." "I'll trouble you with it," Han Li answered calmly. "Please wait a moment, young sir." The servant bowed, closed the gate, and hurried back inside. Han Li stood leisurely before the gate, surveying the vast estate. From time to time, carriages rolled past along the street. Though he had not extended his spiritual sense across the city, it was already evident that a large number of cultivators were present. Moreover, several areas housed cultivators of notably high grade. This struck him as peculiar. He could not understand why so many cultivators would take such an interest in the mortal world. About the time it would take to finish a cup of tea later, the gates creaked open once more. An elegantly dressed youth stepped out, his appearance refined and scholarly. The servant from earlier stood behind him. After appraising Han Li briefly, the youth smiled politely. "You must be Sir Han. I am Gan Yu. I heard that you are a distant relative of the Gan clan. Though I have not heard of this before, propriety must still be observed. If Sir Han does not mind, would you please follow me to the living room?" "So you are Uncle Gan's son," Han Li replied with a nod. "Since you have extended the invitation, I would be discourteous to refuse." Gan Yu smiled faintly and stepped aside to welcome him in. The black gates closed silently behind them. 2 hours later, the Gan clan's master, Gan Qi, returned by carriage. He was a plump man of about 50, dressed in blue noble robes. As he dismounted, he asked the gatekeeper, "Has anything occurred while I was away?" The servant replied earnestly, "Lord, a young man surnamed Han arrived earlier. He claims to be your nephew and is currently in the living room with the eldest young master. They appear to be engaged in an animated discussion." Ganqi paused mid-step. "A nephew? Surnamed Han?" Doubt tinged his voice. Could he be an impostor? The servant asked nervously, "Shall I summon the guards?" "It's hard to say," Ganqi replied after a moment. "I believe such a relative may exist, but it has been many years. My memory fails me. Continue guarding the gate. This matter does not concern you." With that, he strode into the estate. Without changing his clothes, he headed straight for the main hall. Just as he reached the entrance, a familiar and cheerful voice drifted out. "I truly admire Brother Han's profound understanding of Confucian teachings. As for those lofty principles, my own interpretation is that it was clearly his eldest son, speaking with unusual excitement." Ganqi's expression darkened, slightly unease flashing through his eyes. After a brief hesitation, he clenched his teeth and stepped inside. Father Gan Yu said as he rose and saluted, "This is Sir Han." "Yes, I've already heard." Ganqi waved him aside, then fixed his gaze on Han Li. "So you are the one who claims to be my distant relative. Might you have a letter or keepsake as proof?" Han Li stood and smiled faintly. Without a word, he produced a gleaming white jade pendant and handed it over. The moment Ganqi saw the pendant, his expression shifted. He accepted it solemnly and examined it carefully before saying, "So it truly is you, young descendant Han. Please come with me to my study. There is a matter concerning my late aunt that I wish to ask about." Overcome with emotion, he seized Han Li's wrist and hurried him out of the hall. Left behind, Gan Yu stood in stunned silence. "Aunt, did the Gan clan truly have such a relative?" Inside the study, Ganqi carefully shut the door and bowed deeply. I pay my respects, Sir Han. Stand up, Han Li said calmly. With a casual wave of his sleeve, a current of blue light straightened Gan Chi's body before he continued. There is no need to question my origins. You only need to know this: I was sent here by the people who once stood above you. Gan Chi's lingering doubts vanished entirely after witnessing this display of supernatural power. He replied reverently, "Yes, so you are connected to the two sirs who once protected the Gan clan. They disappeared 20 years ago. Young Master Han, your arrival could not be more timely." Han Li nodded, then spoke in a firm, commanding tone. "I am only passing through the Gan clan. I have more important matters to attend to. However, I will require the assistance of your connections within the mortal world." Outside Taichang City lay numerous inconspicuous Confucian schools, one of which was a mid-grade institution known as Pure Revelations Academy. If there was anything noteworthy about it, it was its location, built upon the famed Jadefield Mountains. The Jadefield Mountains were a renowned spirit mountain range within Tai Chang Prefecture, comprising more than 10 peaks of varying height. Though none were particularly steep or imposing, the range enjoyed mild weather year-round, with blossoms blooming endlessly across its slopes. Rare spirit trees and uncommon fruits grew abundantly throughout the mountains, species found nowhere else. Because of this, the Jadefield Mountains were ranked foremost among the 13 spirit mountains of the region. Pure Revelations Academy was situated upon Illusory Cloud Peak, one of the mountain range's central summits. Capable of housing over 1,000 people, the academy sprawled across the entire upper half of the peak. It was said that the academy lacked the qualifications to establish itself on such a famous spirit mountain. After all, the surrounding peaks were occupied by renowned Taoist temples and ancient Buddhist monasteries, existences far superior to a mere Confucian academy. Yet strangely enough, when Pure Revelations Academy was founded over 1,000 years ago, none of the nearby Taoist or Buddhist sects voiced the slightest objection. On the contrary, priests and monks alike had treated the academy's students with notable courtesy ever since its establishment, a phenomenon that left the local populace deeply astonished. Another peculiarity of the academy lay in its recruitment practices. The ages of its disciples varied wildly, ranging from children as young as 6 to adults well past their 20s. Moreover, recruitment occurred irregularly, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year, other times not at all for 4 or even 8 consecutive years. Stranger still, many of those who entered the academy were rarely seen leaving through its front gates, further cloaking the institution in mystery. Of course, such mysteries existed only in the eyes of mortals living on the lower slopes. Lacking any true understanding, they believed Pure Revelations Academy to be utterly unremarkable, its name scarcely known beyond the immediate region. On this particular day, 2 figures were slowly ascending Illusory Cloud Mountain. One was a middle-aged scholar with a dignified bearing, his sleeves fluttering gently in the mountain breeze. The other was a young scholar in his early 20s, with slightly tanned skin and an otherwise ordinary appearance. This youth was none other than Han Li, who had appeared at the Gan estate a month earlier. As they climbed, the middle-aged scholar spoke calmly. "Esteemed nephew Han, Pure Revelations Academy concluded its most recent recruitment 2 months ago. However, old fellow Gan mentioned that you have learned some Taoist techniques and possess knowledge of cultivators. Thus, I have brought you here for an assessment. Whether the academy accepts you will ultimately depend on fate." He paused briefly before continuing, "I share a long-standing friendship with senior teacher Lu of this academy. I will take you to meet him. If he finds you suitable, you may remain here." "Yes," Han Li replied sincerely, "Uncle Gan has already explained everything to me. Regardless of the outcome, my uncle will remember this kindness." As he spoke, Han Li subtly released the aura of the 4th layer of qi condensation. Ordinary cultivators would find it impossible to discern his true cultivation. A month earlier, Han Li had requested Gu Qi, the Feng clan's agent, to help him enter any large cultivation sect, regardless of affiliation. He made this request openly because the Feng clan had long instructed its agents to cultivate goodwill with cultivators. who ventured into the mortal world for future benefit. As a result, Ganqi was able to fulfill Han Li's request without much difficulty. What troubled him, however, was the possibility that Han Li harbored ulterior motives that might bring disaster upon the Gan clan. Yet all of the Gan clan's businesses secretly belonged to the Feng clan. Should Han Li produce the relevant property deeds, the entire Gan clan could be eradicated overnight. Furthermore, Ganqi sensed that the Feng clan's origins were profoundly mysterious, despite his limited understanding of the cultivation world. In the end, after Han Li solemnly promised not to involve the Gan clan in any future trouble, Ganqi could only grit his teeth and agree. After several days of preparation, he selected a middle-aged scholar, surnamed Yan, to serve as intermediary, arranging for Han Li's entry into Pure Revelations Academy. The choice was deliberate. Confucian schools enforced far more lenient admission policies than orthodox cultivation sects, as long as one was not affiliated with an evil sect and had a clean past. Acceptance was likely even for those who had previously taken a master. Moreover, Ganqi had once rendered teacher Yan a great favor. As a Confucian scholar, Yan placed exceptional importance on loyalty and obligation and thus handled the matter with utmost dedication. While other methods of entering cultivation sects existed, their chances of success were far lower. After all, although cultivation sects in Great Jin were not as difficult to enter as those in the heavenly south, low-grade vagrant cultivators were still categorically excluded. When Han Li first heard the name Pure Revelations Academy, he discreetly flew to the Jadefield Mountains, using a flying magic tool to examine the spirit veins. What he discovered left him satisfied. Though the mountain's spirit vein could not compare to the spirit, objects within his cave abode in the heavenly south, it was far stronger than any spirit vein near Tai Chang City. As for spirit wells, if they were moved frequently without being anchored atop a spirit vein for extended periods, they would gradually lose their spiritual essence. Thus Han Li carried only 2 with him, since he had been unable to find an unoccupied spirit vein anywhere in Great Jin. He was forced to scheme his way into a major sect in order to cultivate. Under these circumstances, Han Li adopted the identity of a distant relative of Ganqi, a low-grade vagrant cultivator who had learned only shallow techniques yet harbored an ardent yearning for the Tao. Relying on his uncle's influence, he sought entry into a large sect to continue his cultivation. Teacher Yan sighed softly as they walked. "It seems Brother Gan values you greatly." "That is hardly surprising. Those with spirit roots are 1 in 10,000. It is only a pity that I lack spirit roots myself, or I would have pursued the path of cultivation here long ago." Han Li merely smiled and said nothing. They continued onward. As they climbed higher, a distant mountain peak emerged amidst the clouds. Soon after, clear and resonant bell tolls echoed through the mountains, each peal shaking the spirit of those who heard it. Teacher Yan halted and gazed toward illusory Cloud Peak. Shaking his head, he muttered, "The Treasure Spirit Temple's clear hum bell is truly a rare treasure. Still, the senior monk is rather excessive, striking it 3 times in a single day." A sharp glint flashed through Han Li's eyes upon hearing mention of a Buddhist sect. His expression turned contemplative. He quickly realized that the so-called treasure was merely a top-grade magic tool, nothing particularly extraordinary. He clasped his hands behind his back and followed Teacher Yan onward. Soon they arrived at a broad platform halfway up the mountain. The scenery suddenly opened before them. A vast sea of emerald green bamboo stretched endlessly ahead, lush and vibrant. Red and white buildings were faintly visible within the forest, while several white stone paths wound their way inward. Teacher Yan glanced at the scene and said, "Let's go. The main gate is usually closed. We'll enter through the side gate." After navigating several winding paths, they arrived before a pitch-black gate standing 3 meters tall. Teacher Yan sighed and knocked lightly. The gate opened soundlessly, revealing a young man dressed in white Confucian robes. "Our teacher," Yan the youth greeted respectfully. "Have you come to see Senior Teacher Lu?" Spiritual qi fluctuations at the third layer of qi condensation radiated faintly from him, yet he addressed teacher Yan with great deference. Han Li couldn't help but reassess the middle-aged scholar. In the heavenly south, such a scene would be unthinkable, Han Li thought coldly. Confucian discipline must be exceptionally strict for even cultivators to bow their heads to mortals. Still, this would only apply to low-grade cultivators, certainly not to those of higher realms. Yes, teacher Yan replied calmly. Is Brother Lu present? The youth pondered briefly. He is currently receiving an esteemed guest in his study. I will report your arrival. That will do. Thank you for the trouble, teacher Yan said with a smile. Though aware that teacher Yan was a mortal, the youth knew of his close relationship with senior teacher Lu and dared not show the slightest disrespect. After a courteous nod, he retrieved a voice transmission talisman, murmured a few words into it, and sent it skyward as a streak of fiery light that vanished without a trace. Not long after, a powerful spiritual sense swept over Han Li, and teacher Yan then immediately withdrew. Han Li's heart stirred. This was almost certainly senior teacher Lu. Judging by the strength of the spiritual sense, he was an early core formation cultivator far beyond Han Li's expectations. He had assumed the man would be at most late foundation establishment. From Han Li's perspective, the weaker the opponent, the better. A higher cultivation meant a greater chance of seeing through his disguise. Moments later, the surrounding spiritual qi trembled. A man's indifferent voice sounded from above. Brother Yan, I am currently meeting a guest. Still, you may come in. Oh, and bring that young friend of yours as well. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.